The shadows beneath, I always had an irrational fear of the dark. Not in the typical sense, where shadows seemed to slither and stretch out from the corners of my room at night, but in the more insidious way, where the darkness crept into my mind. It was a quiet terror, the feeling that something was watching, waiting for me to slip. But lately, that fear had intensified. I could no longer tell where the line between reality and nightmare began to blur. It started innocuously enough, strange dreams, vivid and unsettling. They were always the same. A vast, endless hallway with doors lining the walls, each leading to a room I had never seen. But the worst part was the figure at the end of the hall. It was always the same faceless shadow. A person, but not a person. Its form indistinguishable from the pitch-black night surrounding it. One night, it was different. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart pounding in my chest. The hallway from my dream stretched out before me, just like in my sleep. Only now, it felt real. The floor was cold under my bare feet, the air heavy with the scent of mildew. I froze, knowing that something was wrong, but unable to move. My eyes darted around the familiar room that now felt alien. My instinct screamed at me to run. But where? To hide from what? Suddenly, a noise broke the silence. A creak from the far end of the hallway. The figure had moved closer. My breath hitched as I saw it again, standing at the far end, a dark silhouette against the backdrop of the hallway's dim glow. No matter how many times I tried to look away, the shape seemed to grow, inch by inch, its presence more overwhelming. I tried to scream, but no sound came. Panic surged as I tried to turn back to my room, but my legs wouldn't obey. Each step I took towards the hallway was heavier than the last, as if the darkness was pulling me in, urging me closer to the shadow. Then, for a split second, I saw its face, or rather, the absence of it. Where eyes should have been, there was only an empty, swirling void, a vortex of my worst memories. All the faces, all the fears I had ever tried to bury, resurfaced in that hollow, unblinking stare. In that moment, I understood. The figure wasn't some external terror. It was the manifestation of all the things I feared about myself. My fear was me. I was something that needed to be feared. But why? Why do I need to be afraid of myself? And then, in the middle of my terror, something shifted. I began to understand that the nightmare wasn't about running, hiding, or avoiding the figure. It was about confronting it, acknowledging what it represented. I had lived my life trying to hide myself, my true self, the real me. But the more I avoided, the more it controlled me. The shadow wasn't just a fear. It was a reflection of my own unresolved past that I needed to confront, or I needed to remember something that explained everything, explained why I was different. Taking a deep breath, I did the one thing I had never dared to do. I approached the figure. As I walked towards it, the air thickened, the darkness pressing in on all sides. But I kept going. The closer I got, the less the shadow seemed to loom. The face, or what should have been a face, began to soften, its edges blurring, until it was just a shadow once again. No more real than the fears I had allowed to dominate my life. My heart still raced, but there was a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't running anymore. I wasn't hiding. I had confronted the darkest part of myself and survived. And now I remembered. I remembered everything. The darkness around me began to recede, the hallway dissolving into nothing. I was back in my room, sitting up in bed, the morning light creeping in through the blinds. My breathing was steady now, my mind clear. For the first time in years, the shadows no longer seemed so terrifying, for I had conquered it. The only thing that ever got anything out of me, because now I knew. Now I remembered the truth about who I am, the monster that I carried within me. It didn't want to stay buried anymore. It was clawing through my skin to let loose. I had controlled it my whole life. It was time everyone felt what I felt. Everyone had to be afraid of my fear. Everyone deserved to face my fear. Everyone should fear me for who I am. I sat on the edge of my bed, the warmth of the morning sun pressing through the curtains. My mind still buzzed with the after effects of the nightmare. No, not a nightmare, I corrected myself, but a revelation. It wasn't something I could easily shake off. The fear of the dark, the shadow that had haunted me for so long, still lingered in the corners of my mind. But now there was something different, a strange sense of power, knowing the truth. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the world beyond. The trees swayed in the breeze, and the sky was clear, but a lingering thought gnawed at me. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. It was a text from my best friend, Mia. "Hey, how are you today? You seemed off last night. Wanna talk?" Oh, so now she wants to talk, is it? With a deep breath, I typed a reply. "I had a strange dream last night. I think it was more than just a dream, though. Something shifted in me." Mia's reply came almost instantly. "That sounds intense. Want to meet up? You can tell me about it." I felt annoyed, but then I typed, Let's meet at the cafe later. Mia was my best friend, but it always felt like she always only reached out when she wanted something. I had always been good at reading people. I knew Mia was selfish, but I always hanged out with her because she was also one of the most popular girls in college, which gave my life normalcy. I never understood any emotion. I just mimicked everything I saw. I always knew something was different about me, but today I knew why. As I prepared for the day, I couldn't shake the sense that something had changed within me. The shadow I had confronted might have vanished for now, but it had left a trace that was now pushing me to look deeper inside myself, to explore what was beneath the surface. Later that afternoon, I arrived at the cafe. Mia was already there, sipping a cappuccino and scanning her phone. She looked up when I entered, her face lighting up with a welcoming, fake smile. I was now sure that Mia needed something. The strength needed to suppress the urge to eye roll was tiring. Sometimes I wondered, why do I even bother? I took a seat across from her, the comforting hum of the cafe's atmosphere easing my nerves. I glanced around the cafe. It's strange, really, how people go on with their lives, oblivious to the fact that they're just players in a game I'm not really interested in. They feel things, emotions like guilt or joy or sadness. They let these things rule them. But not me. I don't let emotions get in the way. They're distractions. Why should I feel anything when I can see things so clearly? Take today, for example. I'm sitting across Mia at a cafe, and she's talking about her day. Something trivial, like how her boyfriend Cole was rude, or how her coffee wasn't as hot as she'd wanted it. I can see her eyes light up when she talks, how she leans in slightly, waiting for my response. She thinks I'm listening, that I care, but I don't. The words she's saying don't matter. The only thing that matters is how she behaves, how I react to things she says, how she trusts me, how she looks at me like I'm someone worth sharing her thoughts with. I give my just enough attention to keep her interested. That's all I need. I can tell what she's going to say next without even having to think about it. People are predictable. They are creatures of habit. Emotions are just their patterns, their responses to external stimuli. They don't make them special. They're just machines that respond to certain things, like I do. The difference is, I don't get tangled in those responses. They're useful, though. Understanding them, manipulating them, it's like a game of chess. You move them around until they do what you want. She said that we could talk about my dream. But here we are, talking about how awful of a boyfriend Cole is. I just hope she doesn't cry. Because today, I don't think I can put up with this anymore. Cole just yelled at her for not deleting an Instagram post he didn't like. He never understood her. She says it like it matters. The vulnerability in her voice, that little crack that betrays the illusion of control. It's almost amusing. People talk about their wounds like they're sacred, like they're somehow beyond reproach. But what they don't realize is that they're just vulnerabilities. And if you're smart, you can use them. I watch her carefully, noting the way her hand shakes slightly as she stirs her drink. She's nervous now, about something. I nod, pretending to care, like I'm reflecting on what she said. I don't care about her boyfriend or her pain. I care about what makes her tick, how I can twist her perceptions just enough to get what I want. It's not about hurting her, not necessarily. It's about control, power, and in this world, people give up their power so easily. They open up to you, they trust you, and once they do, they're mine. Her phone vibrates. She picks it up, looks at it first with anger, then confusion, then sadness. I don't need to wonder what it is about. She will tell me about it eventually. She always does. She smiles, reassured. She thinks I understand her, thinks I'm someone she can confide in. She's wrong. I finished my drink. Her face lit up with the self-satisfaction of someone who feels understood, who's shared their deepest secrets with someone they think cares. Do you have a crush on Cole? She asks suddenly, her expression a mixture of hurt and anger. Now where was this coming from? Sometimes people do throw a curveball at you, but if you are someone like me, you always know how to dodge it. What? No, I said, trying to convey an emotion that I wasn't feeling. She stares at me, trying to read me. Unlike me, she wasn't good at reading people. Hence, she was in a relationship with an idiot like Cole. He was hot, all right. He had a handsome face, body that girls went mad over, and that bad boy attitude that had girls dropping like flies all over the campus. Also, he was nutty as a fruitcake. He had a personality of an Adidas sandal. She thinks that staring at me intently may intimidate me into telling her something. I just don't care about her or her pathetic boyfriend anymore. It seemed like a staring contest between us. She doesn't know that I've already moved on. I've already seen her for what she is. Predictable, simple, and just another piece on the board. I've won, and she hasn't even realized it. Cole and I had a fight yesterday. You know about the Instagram post I told you about? Then he went on saying about how smashing hot you are. Brad and Nate agreed with him. I got a little mad. I mean, I know you are hot, but please, why does he care when he is dating like the hottest girl on the campus? She said, looking at me to affirm her belief. I just stared back, because I don't even care anymore. She just continued, after a minute of reassuring herself about her hotness. Cole left after that, but Nate stayed back to see if I was all right. And then he said that Cole has been getting a little obsessed with you lately, ever since he came back from visiting his sister's family at Jacksonville. Now this is interesting. Jacksonville is where I was born, also the place where it all began. Now what is that steroid-filled Adidas sandal up to? Looks like he isn't as much nutty. I just smiled at her. Oh, come on, girl. I wouldn't even talk to Cole. You know me. I would never betray my bestie for another man. You know sisters before meisters. He will never come between us. In fact, he will never hurt you again. I said, smiling, knowing that the steroid-filled balloon needs to be popped. Mia is too important for my normal image, as much as annoying she is. She is an important piece in my chessboard. I still had a year left in college, after all. Satisfied, she gets up to leave, and I watch her walk away. She's happy, content. She thinks we've shared something meaningful. That's the beauty of it. The beauty of not caring. People will always be eager to give you what they think you want. They'll hand over their trust, their secrets, their love, if you know how to ask for it, if you know how to play the game. I look out the window, the sunlight spilling through the glass. The shadows outside, stretched long and dark across the street, no longer seemed as menacing. The shadow hadn't vanished entirely, but it didn't need to. It was part of my story, part of what made me who I am. And by facing it, I had taken control over my own narrative. As I sat there thinking, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't experienced before. There was still work to do, still parts of myself to uncover and accept. But I wasn't afraid to keep moving forward. After all, the worst of it, the part that had kept me locked in fear, was already behind me. My phone vibrated. Hey, it was a text from Cole. I called him. I just couldn't text him, for I already knew everything. I asked him to meet me at the Lover's Cliff. It was just a secluded cliff on the top where all of them went to make out. Cole, the steroid-fueled cupcake, thought I asked him to meet there because I wanted to make out. I drove and waited for him there. I was scared. Not because he was walking slowly towards me and looking at me like a predator looking at his prey, but because I knew the truth. I was the big bad wolf, and he was just the shepherd who cried wolf. I slowly and seductively walked towards him. Licking my lips, I watched him follow my action. I have a secret? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, as if it were a secret in itself. Yes, he said, smiling and reaching in front of me. And you know about it? I asked, trying to look serious. and running my nails slowly along his chest and going around his neck. "Yes," he said, smirking and holding my waist. I shivered a little as his fingers made exotic patterns on the exposed skin of my waist. I pulled him closer to my face by his neck and played with his soft hair. "And this secret is what?" I whispered slowly, our lips almost touching. "You don't know about it yet?" he said, looking at my lips with lustful eyes. "Let me get this straight. I have a secret that I don't know about, but you know about it?" I kissed him, giving him exactly what he wanted. The kiss was slow at first, then it turned to a battle for domination. He thinks he knows me. He believes he knows my secret. I let him get his way for a few seconds, and then pulled his hair, which made him open his mouth, and I let my tongue in to show him how it's done. He didn't mind, really. Two can play the game. He was about to grab my ass when suddenly I pushed him, and down he fell. "I am sorry. You knew my secret. You had to die. Nothing personal, really. For what it's worth, you were a good kisser," I shouted, looking down the cliff at his falling figure, my hair flowing back and laughing maniacally. "Neighbors, it's been so peaceful without tenants in Unit 37. Something about that apartment always attracts such surly people. Loud, rude, unneighborly. This used to be a community. Now it's more of a ghost inn. I liked going to the market first thing in the morning on Thursdays. That's when they deliver the fresh weekly stock, and all my favorite vendors know to save me their best batch. I didn't used to be able to afford this. Strange to think how now that I don't go to work, I am able to spend all this money. But life is in the little things, in plump figs, rich greens, and tomatoes that smell of being grown in sunny gardens. It's opportune that the school gave me paid leave, just like they did with the teachers. I thought they would send me to work in the next county while the school was renovated. I guess funding was improving. I cleaned up after dinner, freshened up, and went to bed. Or rather, the couch. I've gotten used to sleeping on it after long shifts, having to waitress for a while after work. Ends required meeting for a time, and I would just crash in the living room. Nowadays, it's more comfortable than ever, like a warm cocoon, ready to wrap me up, safe and sound each night. I finally slept like a baby. Then there was a bark, suddenly, in the middle of the night. Loud, sharp barking of a dog. It sounded so close, I thought he was right in the room with me. A cold chill ran throughout my body from how much it startled me. I felt my heart go cold. Must be what a surge of adrenaline feels like. I would have thought it would be a hot flash, but I felt frozen. Listening more carefully, I realized it was coming from Unit 37. I didn't see anybody move in. Why is there a dog? Am I hearing it wrong? drowsiness was overtaking me again. Once my body realized it wasn't in imminent danger. Maybe it's for the best, I thought, and laid back down to sleep. It was a sunny August day. I've gone to feed the ducks at the park pond. It was only 10 a.m., but the heat was already scorching. Right at the entrance of my old, derelict-looking building, I've come across them. 2 strong men in white polo shirts, carrying boxes inside. Movers. I didn't speak to my neighbors. Or they didn't speak to me, really. It's useless being friendly to faceless people who look through you. Everyone has enough on their minds to care about anybody else if they can help it. So I don't know anybody here anymore, and I don't mind if it stays like that. At least there was no ruckus. Nobody made problems. I can live with that. As I climbed the stairs to my 4th floor, I saw that my assumption was right. There were a few empty units that anybody could be moving into. Of course, it had to be the Unit 37, right next to me. Then I heard it again. The piercing noise. Barking. Their door was open, the movers going in and out, diligently filling the space, I presume. And my mind seemed to fill just the same. Who were these people? Will the dog bark now, all the time, and disturb my peace? A young woman, maybe late 20s, with wavy brown hair appeared, with the dog on a leash, instructing the movers how she'll be back soon. She gave me a curt nod and swooshed beside me. All right, just the girl. Maybe she's a student, or just a young woman finding her feet on her own. If the dog keeps being loud, I'm sure she won't mind if I talk to her about it. It looked like a young dog. It could learn to behave. In the afternoon, everything changed. He came home, too. The boyfriend. I should have supposed that she had a boyfriend. She was young and beautiful. Why wouldn't she? Why he had to be insufferable that I had no answer to. Days that followed past in turmoil. I am aware it sounds like an exaggeration. They had the right to move in there. They had the right to make life noises, to be. I was the one who had to endure it. I heard every step, every clink of the silverware, every bathroom visit, the TV, and the bedroom. And most of all, the arguments. I had the urge to go to the hardware store and ask to have my walls insulated. I think I could even afford it, but I kept thinking it would be too extreme. They were just a messy young couple. Nobody is perfect. I just wish I didn't have to witness it. On top of everything, it was the dog. If it wasn't for the dog, I think I could have gotten used to the other noises. But the damn animal barked all day and all night. Not all the time, obviously. Just enough to constantly remind you he was there. That they were there. What bothered me the most is that nobody seemed to care. at all. As if nobody else in the entire 5-story building with over 30 units could hear him, except me. Did nobody else wake up at 3 a.m. each night when the damn thing shouted? That's how it sounded like, as if he was shouting at someone. Sometimes I had a feeling he was angry at the boyfriend, which is when I sympathized with the animal a bit. I, too, sometimes want to bark at the vile man, but who was he mad at in the middle of the night? When he barked at those times, it felt like he was angry at me, and I hated him for it. It was a Thursday. I have just gotten back from my farmer's market stroll. I never knew when they'd be home. They didn't seem to work a normal job. They'd be home at odd hours, and then gone at even stranger ones. Did they even work at all? Who paid for everything? They never seemed to argue about money. I could hear shouting from the corridors, climbing the stairs. The smell of weed was forever permeating the inside of the building. I detested the smell, but it was simply one more thing I just had to accept and learn to live with since they moved in. I've called the police 12 times in total so far. Loud music, partying, drugs, the dog. The police would come. They would get quiet and not answer the door. The police would leave. That was the extent of the law protection this country provided. Not that I put my faith in them. It was simply the only thing I could do. I tried ringing them, hoping to talk. He would curse at me through the door, and I would run back to my apartment. It was cowardly. At least that's how I felt when I did it. I just don't know what else to do. My entire existence was upended by them. They consumed me. My every waking moment, they made me think of themselves. They woke me up to remind me they were there. I had no escape, no peace, and there's always the dog. Sometimes I think he must feel the same way I do. He too is trapped with them. He can't leave. He can't even pee if they don't feel like getting up and taking him outside. One time, I heard the boyfriend hit him. He must have done his business inside. I pitied him, and I hated him all the same. Today, the dial got turned up a notch. Maybe the pot of gold they've been living off of had run dry. Maybe she cheated. Maybe he had built enough frustration to take it out on her as well. Plates were shattering as I quickly unlocked my door. I dumped my things in the kitchen, and without thinking, on instinct, went to call the police. That's what I was hurrying to do, without even realizing. As it was ringing, I could hear her cry and beg him to stop. Stuff was flying, hitting walls and probably hitting her too. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, hello, I'm calling about my neighbors. Ah, Ms. Mizzero. Is it the dog again? Excuse me? You are Miss Mizzero at Fair Corner 11, correct? Yes, I have you on record here. You have issues with your neighbors. So I only asked if it was the dog again. Isn't that neat? No, it is not the dog. Well, it's the human dog, that bastard of hers. He's beating her. I can hear it through the wall. He's hurting her. There's stuff flying all right, ma'am. We'll send someone over to check on the situation. There is nothing to check. You need to hurry. He's hurting her. He could kill her. Do you hear me? Yes, ma'am. I've already told you. I've sent someone over. Just sit tight and try not to worry. He hung up the phone. Besides a few doors opening to snoop and promptly closing when their suspicions were confirmed, nobody did anything. He continued to scream and hit her. She continued to sob and mumble. Was she explaining herself? Begging? Soothing him? I couldn't tell. Not by her words, at least. I just knew. I didn't even realize I'd been sitting at my dining table, clutching the phone, listening, that 3 hours went by. I got startled from my stupor by the doorbell outside, and I glanced at the clock, noticing the time. That's how long it took them. They were at their door. I wonder what they'll do if he doesn't open the door. Will they just walk away like they did all the other times? The lock clicked a few times, and I could hear her voice. I knew it to be hoarse, but to a stranger, she sounded normal, chirpy even. Sorry to bother you, miss. We had a complaint from a neighbor. They heard some shouting. It seemed like they were worried for your safety. Is everything all right? Really? Oh my. Well, I'm fine. I don't know what it could be. Oh my God. Yes. Oh no. I feel so bad. It's probably the dog. My boyfriend came home. He was away for a few days, and Loki got a little too excited. He's been jumping all over the place. So the dog was making the noise? Yes. Oh my God. Yes. I just remembered. He knocked over this vase right when Danny came home. Right, babe? Danny. I've never heard his name before. Doesn't suit him. He looked more like a Brad or Kyle. Hello? I thought it was the takeout. What's happening? I heard him ask the officer. We're just here to make sure everyone is all right here. There were some noise complaints. Oh my God, again? Some people really don't have a life of their own, do they? They all chuckled. The cop, Danny, the girl that was sobbing all afternoon, all laughing at me. Well, I can see there's no problem here. Just try to keep the noise down at night. And don't let us spoil your afternoon. Have a good one, guys. She lied. What hurt the most was the familiarity of it. I remember lying, too. It seemed that, to the world, my lies were more believable than the truth. She was reminding me, I'm not the only one. They seemed to be more quiet after that. He left and came back late. She only went out briefly to walk the dog. The next day, I woke up with the intense urge to go to the park. I needed to see the pond. I dreamt of the water, the peaceful green vastness. My ducks. Do they remember me? I bet they would like anybody who brings seeds and lettuce, not just bread. I had to go to them, gathering my things. I went to leave, locking up my door. She just got out too, at the same time. Our eyes locked. She looked swiftly away, but not soon enough. I saw the bruise covered by a thick layer of foundation. It was so ridiculously obvious, it made me think, did people really not see? Or did the covering up signal to them, it's okay, I want you to not care. I want you to not ask me about it. Look away. I couldn't look away, because I now knew. I was sure that cop knew too. Hello? Oh, hi, she answered reluctantly. Off for a walk? Yes. Sorry, by the way. Loki barks at night. I know. I can't get him to be quiet. He notices the pigeons sleeping on the ledges of windows and goes bonkers. Yes, we can talk about the dog, but we can't talk about the man. I'm going to the pond. I feed the ducks sometimes. Would you like to come with me? Oh, that's so sweet. But no, sadly, as I said, Loki only sees birds as snacks. She looked like a girl when she smiled. I see. I could come to tea later. If you're not busy, I'd be delighted. I remembered I had no tea at home. So instead of the pond, I went to the store to get some. The ducks can wait. I made them no promises. I sat around anxiously, waiting for her. Will we be honest? Will she even show? The doorbell rang. We sat, sipping my new rose and hibiscus tea. She chatted about looking for work. She had a degree in economics, a very male-dominated field. She didn't have any girlfriends. She was isolated. So much so, I gathered, that the loneliness made her befriend her strange, middle-aged neighbor who called the police on her all the time. So, your boyfriend works then? I pried. No, actually. He didn't go to school, so he has some savings from a previous job. We decided to live off of those while I look for a good job. We're thinking maybe when we have a family, I could then stay home and he would go back to work. That way, we both have some free time. You expect to have free time when you have a baby? I blurted. I shouldn't rock the boat. There was another, more pressing matter I wanted her to hear from me. I guess you're right. I hadn't thought of it that way. Well, however it ends up being, we're both unemployed for now. Why isn't he looking for a job, then? Same as you. I told you. He wants to have some free time while he can, to find himself. He did work his butt off for 4 years, you know. He earned it. Do you think he earned the right to do that too? She instinctively covered up her cheek with her hand. You see it? Anyone with a pair of eyes can see it. He's not always like that, you know. He's actually really loving. And funny. He hits you. She paused. Yes, you know you need to leave him. I can't. He pays the rent. You'll find a job. You don't need him. I can't. I held her hand in mine. She jolted at my touch, yanking her hand away, with tears in her eyes, looking almost scared. I'm sorry. I don't mean to upset you. She just stared at me with a strange expression. I know I shouldn't be saying things like that. You don't know me, and you don't need advice from a woman you just met. Why are your hands so cold? It's so warm in here. My hands? I was perplexed by her question. That's what she's focusing on now? The temperature of my hands? The souk stared to bark from the inside of her apartment. She sighed. I should go. I think I even left the window open. One of these days, he'll actually catch a pigeon or something. Our discussion now completely deflected to unimportant matters once again. I had to let it go. All right. Tell Loki I said he needs to be a good boy. I will. The boyfriend must have come home, and the dog got out of their apartment. Before he could catch him, he ran inside my own as she went to leave. Loki, come back. They both went after him. Loki made a straight line for the door of my bedroom, barking insistently and pawing at the doorknob. They almost dragged him away when he made the final jump, opened it, and nosed his way in. He barked and barked and barked. I felt like it lasted for hours. I just kept watching the two, standing at the wide open double door, not turning to me, not calming down the dog. They just stood and stared. I walked slowly closer, with each step being more certain of what I'll find. Peace overcame me. Relief. Joy. I cackled. Full chest, lungs, and heart cackle. It was real. It was. It happened. I did it. They jolted at the sudden noise, finally turning to me. What did you do? She stuttered. The two blackened, withered figures could be seen on the once pristine bed. The one on the right wore my favorite outfit, my green dress, and my mother's dragonfly brooch. Loki, no doubt, found his kindred, too, by the closet. I did what I had to do. Finally, for a time, I got to be free. Tears escaped her eyes. I'm so glad I got to meet you in the end, I told her. I took my bag. I prepared earlier this morning. Take care. I smiled. I think I'll go to the pond now. Yes, I'd like that. Master of puppets. Io sono il padrone, e tu sei il burattino. I am the master, and you are the puppet. Working in an antique store was hardly where Aislinn saw herself 5 years ago. But beggars couldn't be choosers in this economy. Her dreams of becoming someone had been crushed by the reality of life and the collapse of her support system after college, and she depended on this job to make ends meet. Still, something was charming about the Raven's wares, even if she did encounter some characters from time to time. Her cousin often asked her if she had ever felt spirits or weird energy working around the real skulls, the old Victorian dolls, or the taxidermy of the raven that gave the store its name. Like everyone in the town, Aislinn had heard horror stories about the objects sold from this place. A man bought a doll for his daughter, and they all vanished without a trace a week later. A woman bought a pretty ring and died in a freak accident with the ring on her finger. Someone bought an old statue and fell down their stairs. The truth was, Aisling didn't believe in those sorts of things. Ghosts, ghouls, or energies. Sure, the place was creepy if you worked late alone on long winter nights, but it paid the bills. Those horror stories were coincidences. Plenty of people had purchased items from the Raven's wrath without an issue. Her cousin believed in that side of things so strongly. People whispered about her behind their hands. If Aisling started believing, what would they say about their family? It was bad enough she worked here. The customers you never heard about were outsiders. A tiny voice in her head would whisper when she had this argument with herself. You've never followed up to check on what happened afterwards. She looked up from her phone when Eli barged their way back through the piles of antique junk piled around the place. A guy dropped off this painting today. I'm telling you, it's weird. Aisling knew that everything here was weird in one form or another. She once had someone try to offer a jar of real human teeth. That had been on her second day, and regrettably, it had not been her last strange experience. They jerked their thumb over their shoulder. It's out the back by the rocking horse. I need you to label it up before you leave tonight. Did he give any details? Nah, I'm surprised you didn't see him. Dark-haired guy, glasses, had some sort of accent. She vaguely recalled someone coming in of that description when she'd been restocking some old hardbacks and had directed him towards Eli at the back of the store. She wouldn't have thought of him again, save for the odd look in his dark eyes. I sent him to the back to see you. He had this look in his eyes, like he'd seen things, you know? I offered him a fair price, but he didn't even want the money. He just said to take it. He didn't want money? Aisling repeated slowly. That's a bit weird, don't you think? Maybe it came with bad memories or something. Eli shrugged. Just make sure to get it cataloged to go out on display. I've got to head off. I'll see you tomorrow. The afternoon was quickly fading, the air becoming colder and far less welcoming inside. The eyes of the raven on the desk seemed to watch her every move, and the gentle ticking of the antique clocks suddenly felt ominous. Even the shadows of the shelves seemed to be lengthening, reaching out in her direction. Aisling looked up from her book and paused. The store had fallen eerily silent. She felt her heartbeat increase as the hair at the back of her neck stood up. Hello? Why was she calling out? There was no one there. No one had entered the shop. The bell above the door had been silent for hours. A faint whisper seemed to be coming from the distance. Someone must have left the radio on in the storage room. She walked to the back of the store, trying to ignore the feeling that the eyes of the dolls were watching her. It wasn't like her to be this paranoid. She pushed the door open wide and reached in to grab the portable radio the manager insisted on keeping around. Her hand found the handle and lifted it out. It was switched off. Okay, she muttered, feeling a cold trickle of sweat run down her back. She set the radio down on an empty stool and worked away around the mountains of antiques to find the latest addition to the collection. Aisling pulled the sheet off slowly and recoiled. The painting was of a hanging puppet, clearly based on the original Pinocchio story. It's dressed in traditional clothes against a gruesome backdrop of bones and the occasional skull. The entire thing was bordered by a swirling wine-red, blood red. A shudder ran down her spine as she took in all the gruesome details. The glass on the front was cracked, but that was hardly anything they couldn't fix. There was something odd about the break, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. She turned the painting over to check the back of the frame and noticed a faded name on the back, too illegible to read, and an unmistakable bloody handprint. What the hell? The painting clattered to the floor as she reeled back, banging into a cabinet and screaming as the puppet hanging there swung into her face. Its painted smile seemed twisted into a cruel leer as she swatted it away, clutching at her chest. She took some calming breaths. She picked the painting up from the floor with shaking hands and turned it over, aware of her heart racing in her chest. There's no bloody handprint, only the faded marks of a name. You're going mad, she muttered to herself. You need to get out more. She carried the painting to the desk and started cataloging it, intrigued by the lack of an artist's mark. Even a quick Google search yielded no results, and after a few minutes, she brought it back to sit at the back by the dolls and puppets. She took a moment longer to stare at it and turned back to the front. There was a rocking horse in the middle of the aisle. No, that wasn't possible. She hadn't moved anything. Hello? She called out nervously. This isn't funny now. Come out. When no one answered, she tried to focus. Maybe it had been there before, and she had simply walked past it, not noticing. Eli had said the painting was out the back by the rocking horse. For a moment, her cousin's voice echoed in her ear, though she tried to deny it. This was not the first time something like this had happened on her shift. Eli had laughed it off with her at the time, but she hadn't seen a bloody handprint last time. Eli had moved the horse. That's all there was to it. Aisling walked back to the front of the store and stared out at the street, across at the ordinary sight of the small local shop and the dress shop beside it. Maybe she needed a holiday. The radio started playing a Cure song. Had she turned it on? When had she brought it to the front? Suddenly, the dark shop seemed alien to her. No, now she was being stupid. She didn't believe in any of that stuff. A sudden tiredness overcame her as she sat back in her chair and started to doze, watching the cuckoo bird on the antique clock swing backwards and forwards, swinging. She could hear the distant creaking sound of a rope and sobbing cries, growing louder and louder. Oh, how painful! How painful! Why wasn't I good? Something was hovering in the corner of her vision. Every instinct in her body screamed at her not to turn and look, to run away from that shadow. She turned her head and saw the puppet from the painting. It raised its head and leered at her. Puppets have no soul, but they do a lot of harm. Suddenly, she was the one battling with the rope as the puppet laughed and screeched over and over. I want to be real. I want to be real. I want to be real. Aislinn leapt up from her sleep, feeling the phantom rope around her throat. Every item in the shop was facing her. They seemed to be looming towards her, skulls echoing the cries of the horrific voice as it cried out over and over. Whatever sick joke this was, she wasn't playing anymore. She ran to the door and tried to haul it open. It was locked. The room seemed to darken, and the sound of the puppet's voice, distant at first, became unmistakable, growing clearer with each passing second. Its whispers now unmistakably directed at her. Oh, che male. She picked up a metal poker and walked to where the painting sat. The voice was louder now, its desperate cries in both English and Italian piercing her ears. What the hell are you? The voices paused. You should let me out. You're just like me. You're a puppet too. Aislinn lifted the metal poker above her head. What? Are you? You should let me out, Aislinn. She tried to move away, but her back smacked into a large cabinet. What the hell are you? My last puppet didn't obey. He brought me here. Un burattino che non obbedisce finisce sempre male. A puppet who does not obey always ends badly. You should let me out. I've always been here, waiting for someone to let me out. She realized then what was wrong with the glass. Someone, something, was trying to break free from the inside. Her own reflection in the glass warped into a puppet's face, and she felt the weight of something choking her. No, she was not a puppet. She was a human. This wasn't real. I am the master of puppets. Puppets have no soul, but they do a lot of harm. I tried to take his soul, but he broke free. You will let me out. You are my puppet now. You saw it in the glass. You're like me. Aislinn watched in horror as the cracks in the glass grew wider. It will end badly for you if you do not obey. She lifted the poker to swing it, and the hands of the puppets on display reached out and grabbed her throat, pulling her backwards. A bad puppet is of no use to me. I have been waiting for you. There's nothing to be done. One must really die good. Aislinn screamed, trying to throw the puppets off. She twisted in their grip, seeing the cracks grow wider and wider. When you're not real, nothing hurts, Aislinn. But the more I try to be real, the more I feel pain. Oh, the pain. How painful this is. Can't you feel it? The creaking of the rope was unbearable. The spiraling voice wailing and wailing as she begged for this to stop, for her to wake up, to let this nightmare end. Aislinn woke in her chair. The clock read the same time as it had before, but something was different. Everything was different. At some point, the gentle light of the afternoon had faded into a gray gloom bordering on darkness. This day seemed to be lasting an eternity. It was all a nightmare, a terrible nightmare. She saw it then. Her vision narrowed, and her chest tightened as she stared at it. The painting, mocking her from the back, as it always had. Maybe this was still a nightmare taken new form. Those horrible skulls leering at her, that noise, that endless noise. She approached it slowly and ran her hands over the cracks in the glass, feeling her skin crawl with revulsion. The glass was cold, unnaturally cold, like it was sucking the little warmth she had left from her fingers. "I want to be real, Aislinn." A voice whispered in her ear, "You should let me out. I have waited so long." She grabbed the poker from where it lay on the ground and lifted it, bringing it down to strike the glass. A gloved hand reached out of the frame and snatched hold of her wrist, forcing her to drop the poker in shock. A puppet has no soul, but it can do harm. It cackled, drawing her closer to the frame. "You're my puppet now. Your soul is mine." "No!" she screamed, grabbing at the nearest object, a porcelain bird, and throwing it at the puppet. "You aren't real. None of this is real." She felt the world begin to blur and tried to pull away from its grip. But it was too late. This couldn't be it. This couldn't be how this ended for her. This wasn't fair. This wasn't fair. "You aren't real," she cried as her mind began to break. "You aren't real." She felt the rancid breath of the puppet as it whispered in her ear, "And now neither are you. Do not step on the blue. Obsessions are insidious. They take root in the mind like a silent poison, creeping into every thought and distorting our perception of reality. They tug at us like an unseen current, pulling us away from the shore of reason, dragging us into dark waters where escape becomes a distant memory. Slowly, they drive us toward reckless decisions, choices that harm not only ourselves, but ripple outward, touching everyone we care about. Norman Sykes walked the coastal road, the sea stretching endlessly beside him. The soft murmur of the waves was a lullaby, hypnotic and soothing. As he passed a weathered sign, something stopped him. He took a few steps back, brushed a stray lock of hair from his eyes, and read it again. "Do not step on the blue." That's odd. It usually says, "Do not step on the grass," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. His gaze wandered instinctively toward the sea. Countless tangerine peels floated aimlessly on the surface, moving in lazy, slow circles. His breath caught. Then he woke with a jolt, his heart thudding violently in his chest. The same dream. Again, at 50, Norman had spent much of his life trapped in the clutches of obsession. He twisted door locks over and over, checking them again and again until certainty, that cruel illusion of control, settled in. There were mornings when he turned back mid-commute to ensure he hadn't left something behind, arriving late to work, to appointments, perpetually out of sync. But none of his compulsions held the weight of this fixation that had sprouted from a dream. It wasn't fear. It wasn't terror, but for reasons beyond his grasp. It consumed him. Without thinking, he began avoiding anything blue. His favorite navy suit, long tucked in the back of the closet, was now hidden away. The blue blankets he once loved were packed into storage. He even took down paintings that had a hint of blue, as if erasing the color would free him. But the dream did not relent. One evening, as he mentally catalogued every trace of blue still clinging to his life, his eyes fell on his reflection. And there they were, his deep, piercing blue eyes staring back at him. Once they had drawn people in, captivated them. Now they repulsed him. A few hours later, Norman walked out of the ophthalmologist's office, his new black contact lenses hiding his gaze. He then bought a pair of brown-tinted sunglasses to dull the sky's unrelenting blue. It helped. A little. Blue was fading from his waking world, but it still haunted his dreams. The nightmares continued, night after night. One day, exhaustion took hold of him. His legs trembled under the weight of sleepless nights. He found a bench at the edge of a park, collapsed onto it, and checked the time on his phone. He should have been at work hours ago. His eyes were sore, aching from lack of rest, from the black contact lenses that felt like foreign objects against his eyes, pressing into his very soul. He hadn't taken them out in days, and the constant pain was a reminder of the obsession that had consumed him. He had always believed control was the answer. If he could just manage his thoughts, his actions, he could maintain order. The faint echoes of his dream lingered. The blue, the tangerines, the sea. Strange, but familiar, all-consuming. He walked on, each step heavier than the last. Shops, people, the noise of the city, it all passed him by. He was lost, trapped inside his own thoughts, unable to escape. At a street corner, he saw a vendor with a cart piled high with tangerines. His chest tightened. The sight of them made his skin crawl. He couldn't breathe. Without thinking, he rushed forward, his foot swinging violently to kick the cart over. The tangerines spilled everywhere, rolling onto the street. He heard the vendor shout in anger, but Norman didn't care. He had to escape. Days bled into nights. and still he refused to sleep. It was the only way to avoid the chaos in his head. Then one morning, as he drove to work, exhaustion gnawed at him. His eyes burned, both from lack of sleep and the contact lenses that hadn't been removed in days. The pain was unbearable. He stopped at a red light, gripping the wheel, rubbing his aching eyes. Behind him, impatient horns blared. He assumed the light had turned green. Half blind, he pressed the gas pedal. His foot felt heavy, disconnected, as if it didn't belong to him. The world before him seemed to warp and bend, the street stretching out like a mirage. It happened too quickly for him to react. He never saw the van, brimming with tangerines, rounding the corner. Nor did he realize the honking wasn't for him. The driver of the van swerved violently, trying to avoid him. But it was too late. The collision was brutal. Norman didn't even have time to brace himself. The crash threw him back in his seat, the airbag bursting in his face with a deafening pop. His head rang, his vision blurred, but it didn't matter. His mind was elsewhere. Tangerines exploded onto the pavement, tumbling into the sea. They bobbed weightlessly on the water's surface, like fragments of his dream, somehow real. A motorcycle became entangled in the crash. Its rider hurled onto the counter of a small paint shop. Norman barely registered the chaos around him. It was too much. A bucket of paint flew through the air, landing in the grassy park nearby, right beside a sign that Norman had passed countless times before. A sticker on the bucket read, "Blue." The sign split in two, crashing to the ground next to the bucket. A shattered reminder of everything Norman had been avoiding. It had never made sense before, but now it felt like an undeniable truth. Had anyone been there to read it, they would have seen the warning. Do not step on the blue. Cornflower blues. It always came at night. That night was no different in that respect. I had heard it lumbering around outside as the sun disappeared from the sky, the sound of scraping metal as it circled the house. I had always fought the urge to look directly at it, instead only catching glimpses of it in the shadows. If I focused, I could shuffle it to the back of my mind, like a deck of cards. But those lonely hours, when night approached and my mind was no longer engaged by work or meaningless check-ins with the few friends I managed to keep, were the hardest. At first, the check-ins came daily, then weekly, then monthly, then whenever they had a free second to pity me via text. "Hey girl, you doing okay? Do you need anything?" I don't think any of them would have known what to do had I answered yes. I couldn't blame them though. Life goes on, for some people at least. But anyway, the difference in this particular night was that I had decided to allow my mind to go to that place. No shuffling this time. Instead, accepting the cards that were dealt. Sometime after my 5th or 6th glass of Pinot Noir, I turned my phone off, placed it on the end table next to a stack of unpaid bills, pushed the dirty clothes to one end of the couch, and sank into the other end. Alone. It had been 12 months to the day since I lost my sweet boy with the cornflower blue eyes. Cornflower Connie, as I called him. Parents should never have to bury their children. Todd was completely shattered. He left me this past June. I had dropped to a rail-thin 99 pounds, and he said he couldn't stand to see me hurt any longer. I tried everything: counseling, group, rehabilitation programs, but everyone grieves differently. I guess Todd had to grieve alone. At some point, I nodded off, waking only to an unsettling silence, quickly realizing the noise was gone. I wiped the drool from my chin, licked my cracked lips, and decided to check it out. With my body bladed to the window, I pulled the curtain to the side and saw it standing under the dim porch light. The back of my neck tingled, and my heart thumped in my chest, acting like my body's panic alarm. I would normally just do a quick look. Instead, for the first time, I stayed. I studied it. Its skin was the color of burnt charcoal, and its back curved like a question mark. It shifted under the light, revealing a Grinch-like face that scrunched even more as it smiled at me, like a mischievous feline. But there, above the unnerving grin, I saw them, those familiar eyes. My cornflower Connie had come home. All I had to do was focus on those eyes. Don't you want to be with me again, Mommy? Let me in, and you can hold me again, just like you used to. What was I supposed to do? Of course, I wanted to be with him again. It would surely be better than telling myself that the random white blob in the sky actually resembled a heart. A message from my Connie. I love you too. Yeah, you can convince yourself of almost anything if you believe it enough, and if you're sad enough, just like the cardinal that occasionally lands on my fence. Good morning, Connie. Thanks for the visit. I let him in. His long, rubbery fingers took me by the arm, led me upstairs, never breaking his gaze. Where are we going? I asked, barely a whisper, in what seemed like the first words I had spoken in days. To my room, Mommy. The door creaked open, and the lights came on, bringing the room back to life. I have no idea if I flipped the switch or not. It felt like I had floated up the staircase. The room was just as he left it. COONRD, colorfully stenciled on the blue wall above his big boy twin bed. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle sheets and comforter still ruffled from that night a little over a year ago, when he stumbled into our room just before midnight. Mommy, my chest feels weird, he moaned. After a 104.1 fever We rushed him to the hospital. My cornflower Connie would never come home again. His fingers rolled up my sleeve and led me to the bed. I pressed his Michelangelo stuffed animal to my face, inhaling deeply, hoping it still held Connie's scent. It didn't. The tears fell, and his grip tightened on my arm, leading me into the bed. He never let go of my arm. "Lay with me, Mommy." I climbed in, pulled the covers to my stomach, and rested my head on Connie's pillow. "I miss you so much, baby," I yelled through tears, pounding my one free fist on the mattress. "I'm here if you keep looking in my eyes." Just then, his eyes flickered, and as if I was watching a projection screen. I watched as we took in the afternoon show of the new Spider-Man movie last year. Connie's lap littered with buttery popcorn that missed his mouth, his icy stained lips framing his checkered smile. A flicker, a summer afternoon drive around the neighborhood, blasting random 90s songs. He loved the songs that I grew up on. We would do our absolute worst to sing along. "Keep looking at my eyes, Mommy. Just a little bit more until you can hold me again." His grip tightened some more. Another flicker, a lazy Sunday. Me sprawled out on the couch, my Connie's little body slowly rising and falling with my breathing as he naps on my chest. Another second, and I'm yours again. How could I say no? I did what he asked, just a little longer. The avalanche of warmth I felt was euphoric, as if my insides were swaddled in a heated blanket. It was the first semblance of comfort and peace that I hadn't felt since he was actually here with me. I did what he asked. Then I waited. That was 2 days ago, and I don't see my cornflower Connie anywhere. The comfort I had felt the other day dissipated in an instant. I've been patiently waiting, but now I wonder, did it lie? It's so dark here when the world went gray. Joy, happiness, life, creation, the spark of beginning, the heartbeat of Earth itself, the endless manifestation of color and beauty and light, blossoming, growing, unfurling into something infinite. And then, one day, nothing. The world, once bursting with radiance, was swallowed whole, devoured by an oblivion so complete that even memory faded to grayscale, leaving behind only the cruel, inescapable taunt of black and white, a silent mockery of what once was, shadows of what had been clung to the charred land beyond our shelter, reaching with desperate fingers toward a sky that had long since turned its back. And as the relentless nothingness took and took and took, we were left only to bear witness, to suffer in the empty remains of what we had destroyed. And as the world faded to monochrome. I became one of the countless shades of despair. Our city, once flooded with bustling citizens driving cars of every color, is reduced skeletal frames of buildings and cracked roads. A cruel reminder of the countless nights I spent, sleepless, hidden away in my attic, thriving off the colors coating my paint palette. The word around us hasn't just been burned, it's been erased. The vibrancy stripped away. I look around our underground shelter, and for people struggling to survive, everyone was perfectly content with making conversation from the concrete where they sat, as if they weren't on their deathbeds. We scrape by with the rations the leaders distribute weekly, our bodies weakened by hunger, our minds fractured by the unbearable monotony of a world without color. But it isn't the hunger or paranoia that haunts us, but the weight of absence, the memories of color fading with each passing, dissolving to add to the torture of the ash flakes contaminating the air. Black, white, gray, repeat, every damn time. And then I find myself thinking the same, though I thought since the day the world was drained of color. This is a dream. Colors can't just disappear, and yet here we were in this mere sketch of what was, a vast land that stretched on through the remains of the nuclear tragedy, colored in shades of ash and bone, where nothing grows and nothing dares to blossom. For now, I resort to my only escape, my eyelids suddenly feeling too heavy, my mind too weary. Symptoms we've long since accepted as the norm, and allow myself to relax against the concrete wall. Part 1. Rations are low. Too low. A small group of us was sent into the depths of our despair to scrounge together enough food to ensure our, at the least, survival. Survival doesn't always grace the entirety of our measly society, and it's unfortunate. But death, even at 17, is not an unfamiliar fate. I look out into the rubble, finally lifting my eyes from my sneakered feet for the first time since they stepped beyond the shelter's entrance. The land is silent. The only sound, the crunching of boots landing against who knows what, and the whipping wind nipped at my skin, scattering my once auburn-streaked hair across the back of my jacket. Black, white, gray, a gleam catches my eye. We're at the edge of the ruins. That's impossible. My feet are already betraying me, already venturing closer to this foreign feeling of freedom. 5 years ago was the last time I was graced with the presence of color. 5 years since the bombs. 5 years since this world was diminished to a mere grayscale. 5 years. For color to still exist would be out of the question. I track the glistening spar of hope, forcing my eyes to stay open, forcing my feet one in front of the other until, where'd it go? I blink. Scanning the scene, my eyes dart frantically from each piece of colorlese scrap to the next. Come on. Come on. Come. Nothing. The unmistakable feeling of wilted grass prickles at my knees as they hit the ground where it was. The hope of color in an achromatic world slipped through my hoary fingers like sand slipping through the grasp of the ocean spray continuously. Elara? Sienna, one of the other young scavengers, asked, kneeling down in front of me. You okay? I blink back tears I didn't know were welling, forcing composure I don't have, even as I feel the feather-light touch of Sienna's hand on my shoulder. I know I can tell Sienna the truth. She did take me in after the bombs killed my parents, but to burden her would be to break myself in the process. Yeah. My voice is breathy, as if I'm questioning my own answer, while letting the first one that comes to mind slip past my lips. If anyone is going to believe me, it's going to be her. She is the only family I have left, after all. I thought I saw color. Sienna's muted, but still striking. Once blue eyes go wide, clawing to clench onto the sliver of hope and clinging onto it like a lifeline. Anything, everything. She leans closer, the shoulder-length ashy hue filling her head, now slipping past her ear. If anyone can find it, it's you. She said it like it was the easiest thing in the world. But that was just the way Sienna made everything seem. Easy. Like it wasn't the sight reignites a desperate hope, a longing to believe that life, in its fullest form, is not truly gone. Part 2. I can't pretend like it didn't happen. I can't unsee it. I know it's risky. I know there are people here who need every last bit of help they can get. But if there's a better, beautifully vivid world out there, inching to be found, it needs to be found. So here I am, in the thick, inky embrace of the dead of night, my fingers curling tightly around the worn, chilled rungs of the ladder that stretches upward like a fragile, rust-bitten bridge to a world I have long since sworn, with every fiber of my being, to unravel, to tear apart piece by piece if that's what it takes, all in pursuit of that elusive, flickering glint, something small, something distant, something that once dared to catch and hold the fleeting light of a bleached and weary sun. Because if there is one truth I refuse to let slip through the cracks of time, it is that color, in all its wild, untamed brilliance, is not just an indulgence, not merely an ornament to be admired from afar, but a necessity, a lifeblood that the world not only craves, but deserves to be drenched in, to be wholly consumed by And if it is within my grasp to bring it back, to pry it from the hands of whatever force dares to smother it, then I will chase it, seize it, and deliver it without hesitation, no matter the cost. Singed, sealed, delivered. Address: a monochrome world once called Earth, surrounded by rubble. I step out into the spotted sky and let the chill of a rare wind smack me right in the face, a stark contrast to the warmth seeping across my chest. I shake my head at myself and how I utterly disregarded the warnings of the other survivors, and so effortlessly snuck out of the security of our shelter into the wasteland so eagerly. I glance around the land stretched out before me, waste crowding the ground and ashes polluting the air, and I swear the hues of gray, now illuminated by stars and a moon, that appeared as dots and a waning semicircle, were darker than black, everything meshing with the ink-stained sky. I will find it. I'll find it. If it kills me, I will. Then, just beyond the endless stretch of night, a shimmer, the faintest trace of warmth against the cold monotony. It's real, I murmur, though no one is around to overhear. It has to be. Part 3. I walk for hours, and it still feels like I've gone nowhere. I'm still surrounded by the gray void, still surrounded by remains of a better life, and still with the shimmering speck of hope before me, not stopping. The landscape is an endless graveyard of the past. Twisted steel, collapsed buildings, and roads that crack beneath my feet stretch on like the bones of a forgotten civilization. Everything is still. No birds cry overhead. No wind whispers through trees, because there are no trees left to whisper through. The silence is heavy, pressing against me like the weight of the sky itself. I huff, pressing my back against a crumbling door, not bothering to look at the house, but rather the swing set across the road, peering intently as it swings back and forth in the stillness of night, moved by something unseen, perhaps the ghost of the child who cherished it. A sigh slips past my lips at the tempting offer of sleep, but refusing to give in quiet yet, I push my weight forward. My feet drag, weighing me down. Black, white, gray. Repeat. It's infuriating that I can't close the distance between me and my last hope of color. My eyes snag on a reflection in the road. My pace quickens. My footfalls echo in the empty, colorless world as I near the glinting surface. A mirror, cracked, dirt-speckled, abandoned in the middle of the road, like it doesn't belong. Like nothing belongs, I slow, breathing hard. My reflection stares back at me, distorted by the fractures spider-webbing across the glass. The same dull world is behind me, the same lifeless sky above, but beneath me, just beyond the cracks, something else, green, my breath catches. A patch of grass, impossibly vivid, bleeding through the reflection as if it exists in another world, as if it's real, somewhere, somehow. I step forward, heart pounding, kneeling at the mirror's edge. My fingers hover over the glass. The colors look too bright, too alive, like they'd burn if I touched them. But I don't hesitate. I kick the mirror. It shatters under my heel with a sharp, crystalline crack. Splinters of glass scatter across the road, glinting like stars in the empty light. I brace myself for something, anything. A shift in the air, a tremor in the ground, a door opening where there was none before. But when I look down, the green is gone, just shards of broken glass, catching the darkened sky in their edges. Just my own reflection, fractured into 100 jagged pieces. I lurch forward, scraping at the road where the mirror used to be. Nothing. No hidden portal. No sliver of color left behind. My hands shake. Tears, clear wetness, drip down my cheeks in slowed fashion. My breathing comes in clipped gasps. I saw it. I know I did. The wind stirs, sending a few stray fragments skittering away. I watch them disappear down the road, swallowed by the nothingness stretching endlessly ahead. And then I keep walking, pushing harder, further, relentless. Part 4. I refuse to let myself stop. I won't. I can't. Not if I want any chance at finding the color I've recklessly craved. My eyes follow the path I left in the dust, the sun rising higher in the sky. And then, thunk, the ground hits me before I can brace for it. Pain shoots through my skull in sharp, electric volts. I glance up, dazed, and see the thick trunk of the tree I just slammed into. Its rough bark pressing into my chest, pinning me to the earth. I wince, trying to push myself up, but my head swims with dizziness. The tree stands tall, towering over me like an ancient sentinel, its branches casting long shadows in the early morning light. I can feel its strength, as if it's mocking my weakness, daring me to rise again. I press my palms to the ground, leaves crunching beneath them, and accept this tree's challenge. The rough earth presses against my skin, grounding me in this moment, daring me to rise. A chill runs through my spine as I push myself up, dirt clinging to my fingertips. The air is thick, damp, charged with something unseen but undeniable. Prepared to confront the tree, I stand to my feet and ball my fists, the tension in my body coiling like a spring. I'm ready. My knuckles tighten, breath steadying, until a sharp, almost imperceptible sting pricks at my palm. Crunch. My hand flattens instinctively, fingers twitching as I feel the sensation spread. The leaves, crisp and brittle, stick to my skin like they belong there. A brief annoyance flickers through me, and I almost brush them off without a second thought, until something stops me cold. The color, not gray, not black, not the dry, lifeless husks of darkness. These leaves are green. It's faint, fading, dying, but it's there. The realization steals the breath from my lungs. Green here, among the decay. Color still exists, but it is fading. The world is not truly black and white. It is dying in slow motion. The nuclear bombs did not erase color. It severed life's connection to it, leaving only those who remember it to witness its vanishing. A smirk, one I haven't worn since the day of the bombs, breaks across my lips. It all makes sense. I have to find the color. I have to find the, what about everyone else? What about Sienna? I cut myself off, bending to gather a handful of dull leaves from the ground. Sienna would want this. If anyone can find it, it's you. My grip on the leaves tightens, as if I can hold on to her words, onto her, for guidance, like I always have. And I intend to do just that. One step. For hope, another. For faith, 2 steps. For a new life, another. For Sienna. And then I'm sprinting, not daring to look back. The trip of a lifetime. The trees are so much bigger out here, I said, as I looked out the passenger side car window. We were driving from the airport in the cab we just got. The lady driving was rude. She barely even looked at us. But we're out of there, and officially on vacation. The flight was long. I tried to sleep, but the man next to me was a talker. I'm too nice, my girlfriend says, but that's what keeps the world a better place. Besides, the man kept buying me drinks, which is why I'm looking out the window. I might hurl, and greener. This place is beautiful, says Kenny. We're finally in the Pacific Northwest. Our bags are packed, and we're headed to Mount Hood. We have a week out here, and 4 days spent in the mountains. Kenny has family out here, so we're staying with his aunt the first night, and then we're off to breathe that crisp forest air. We made it to his aunt's house. She was so warm and welcoming. I felt right at home. After a nice meal of homemade beef stew and a shower, I was ready for bed. I bid them good night, and off I went, fast asleep in no time. I woke up in a panic. The room unfamiliar. Where am I? I thought, as my senses start to adjust. There's a soft buzzing coming from the fluorescent lights above me. My arms and legs are secured to this hospital bed, it seems. But this doesn't feel like a hospital. It's too cold. I try to move my head, but that's secured too. Hello? I call, but no answer. Hello. Again silence. Suddenly a man is standing above me. He covers my mouth as I go to scream once more. Shut up! They'll know you're awake. And then they'll make you forget. You mustn't forget. It's not safe. Run! Something pokes me, and I'm out again. I awake in bed, extremely well rested. It's 6:00 a.m. What a crazy dream, I thought, as I smelt the coffee. I jump out of bed and run to the kitchen, where Kenny's Aunt Gloria is standing in her long silk lavender-colored nightgown and matching slippers. She seems so frail, yet strong and intimidating at the same time. A soft smile forms as she bids me good morning. Ken's not up yet, but you're more than welcome to join me for some bean water, she says with a chuckle. I follow her outside to the patio. The air is fresh and moist, the coffee warm and delicious. You can see the sun glisten off the morning dew as the birds sing their welcome to the day. It sure is nice of you to let us stay here, I say. Kenny and I have been planning this trip for a while now, and I'm so excited it's finally happening. You two boys, be careful out there. I hear stories all the time about hikers going missing in those woods. These aren't like the mountains you have on the East Coast. These are real mountains, inhabited by really big creatures. I'm sure you've heard of Bigfoot. She says. I chuckle. Ah, Bigfoot, please. He's just a myth. If Bigfoot is real, then I hope I see him. He'll take a photo and become rich. Gloria shook her head and looked deep into her coffee, almost as if she was trying to see the bottom of her cup through the black liquid it now held. Like I said, just be careful, please. It's now 10 a.m., and we are on our way to the mountain. Gloria let us use her car since she doesn't drive anymore. She's 75 now, and hasn't driven since she was 70, and got lost driving home. They found her a day later, parked in a parking area 15 miles from the house. We made it to the mountain after about 2 hours of driving, and we couldn't wait to get on the trail. As we loaded up our packs, Kenny and I discussed our route, where we would stop for water and lunch breaks, where we would camp, and which streams we will pass, so we know where to collect water when we get low. All said and done, the trail up and down the mountain shouldn't take more than 3 days, but we're taking it slow since we haven't done a mountain of this caliber before, so we planned for 4 days. We're hiking Timberline Trail. It passes 3 major landmarks and has snow runoff year-round, so finding water shouldn't be a problem. In total, it's just over 41 miles. We're all loaded up and ready to start our hike when I realize I left my trekking poles at the airport. They must have fallen out of my pack. Just find a stick on the hike. It'll serve the same purpose, says Kenny. I mock him, but I know that's what will happen. Easy for you to say. You didn't forget anything, but he did. The compass. Well, how are we supposed to know where we're going now? I ask. We still have a map, and the trails are marked. It'll be fine, he says in a not-so-reassuring voice. We've been walking for hours, and I haven't seen a single soul. It's day 2 in the woods. The first day went by so fast, but now the excitement and newness has worn off. The woods are long and damp. Flora as far as the eye can see. No roads, cars, people. Hey, are we on the right path? I ask. Yeah, we should be coming up on Cloud Cap in about 5 more miles. Ken responds. I don't believe him, though, and my body hurts. It must be from sleeping on the ground. And I kept having the dream about the guy telling me to run. Maybe that's just making me paranoid. There, see? I told you we're going the right way. That must be Cloud Cap Inn, exclaimed Ken. As I stumbled over the hill, I saw what appeared to me as an abandoned shack in the middle of the forest. I don't think that's it, I yell, but Ken was already sprinting towards the front door. I call first shower, he yells as he enters the doors. I approach the building cautiously, examining the weathered cedar shakes, the broken shutters hanging from the windows. How is this place still in business? I thought. I push open the heavy oak door, and inside, the place looks immaculate. It's an open floor plan with 2 massive fireplaces at either side of the room. The carpet covers the hardwood floor, and drapes cover the windows. I look to the front desk. It's the man from my dream. I told you to run, he says as a loud bang comes from the room upstairs. Kenny screams, bang! Then silence. I run as fast as I can up the stairs, skipping 4 steps at a time. I take a left. The hallway goes on forever. Which room did it come from? Kenny! I yell as I'm racing down the hallway. I hear no response. Kenny! Again, nothing. I ran downstairs, and there's no one around. The doors are locked, and I can't get out. I try for a window, but they're boarded up from the inside. I ran back upstairs and tried those windows, but to no avail. I'm trapped. But how? Why? Just as I ask this, I hear a noise coming from the stairs. I turn around, and there I see it. Kenny's body, 2 gunshot wounds. It must feed, says a voice from the other end of the room. I turn to look. Gloria? Bang. My knee is on fire. I cry out in pain as the creature appears. I look into its bright yellow eyes, soulless and empty, its teeth big and sharp, lips stained with blood. Why Gloria? Because I love him, she says, as she points the gun straight at me. And he loves me. Bang! I fall to the ground. The world seems blurry. I see the smoke coming from the barrel of the Smith & Wesson. I see Kenny stand and take the gun from his aunt. Just as my eyes close for the final time, I should have ran. The end. It's only the beginning of trouble. As I sit on the uncomfortable train seat, blankly staring out of the window, I feel the heat wash over me in an instant. Breath 1, breath 2, breath 3. It's okay. I can do this. Trying to stay calm and relaxed, I look away from the window, starting to feel dizzy from the speed we pass the trees with. You've done this before, I say to myself as a pep talk. Just because it's different setting doesn't mean you can't do it. There is only one problem. If it goes south, I won't be able to escape for another 3 hours of that train ride. I have to execute the plan perfectly to the last step to make sure I will get away with it. In moments like this, I swear at myself for choosing to do that specific line of work. I'm still a beginner. I am still nervous and anxious about the jobs, even though my mentor tries to convince me it will get easier and more natural. I let out a huff and smile at that thought. What a messed up world it is to get used to doing something so awful. I personally don't have a choice. I need to do this and clear the society from disgusting and horrible people. My eyes travel down to my backpack, trembling slightly from the train movements, filled with the tools I will need for this specific job. The top zip is open, and the sun faintly glints in body of the syringe I brought, the tool for Plan A. If all goes well, I won't have to travel too far down the alphabet to finish the job. But I prepared myself for many possibilities and outcomes. I push my head back onto the headrest and close my eyes, breathing in the dusty smell of the carriage. A quiet conversation of the couple 2 rows ahead of me reaches my ears, and I focus on their words to calm my nerves. It's hard to tell what the topic of their exchange is. All I can make out from it are words like secret, promise, disaster, and truth. The nosy part of me wants to move closer and listen in, but the rational part of me rejects the idea, bringing my focus back to my assignment. I should not distract myself with anything until the job is done and I can get off the train. My phone buzzes in my pocket, and I take it out to see my mentor's name on the screen. Yes? I answer quietly, looking around for any other passengers that could be in the earshot. What's the update? His low and raspy voice sounds in my ear, and a shiver travels down my spine. I will approach the target in 8 minutes, I reply, and saying it out loud must activate some more anxiety in me, because my leg starts bouncing and fingers start fidgeting with the seam of my jeans. "Keep me in the loop," he says, and hangs up. I take one last deep breath and stand up, grabbing my backpack and closing the zip. Here we go. Slowly, I make my way towards the front carriage. The first class one I don't have a ticket for. You have to be confident when walking past, but not too confident. It brings attention. Easy. I enter the carriage and quickly scan the faces I can see for my target. I notice him at the table the furthest away from me, so deeply interested in whatever he is typing on the laptop that I can sense it will be easy to execute my plan A. He has got gray hair with some black streaks still running through. The suit he is wearing looks expensive, perfectly tailored to his broad shoulders, but slim figure. He has got a clean shave, but the eyebrows he is furrowing are thick and badly unshaped. Luckily, he looks exactly like the picture I was given. The fact that he has a laptop on the table and a drink next to it is a slight inconvenience. I wouldn't want to damage his laptop in the first part of the process, as he may not be as forgiving for me to move to the second stage of the plan. My movements have to be even more careful now. I cannot afford to make a mistake here. I shuffle my backpack and tilt it to the right side, which is where the tables are. As I slowly make my way towards the end of the carriage, I intensely calculate the angle I have to use to not cause too much trouble. My target's laptop is by the window side of the table, as is he, still furiously typing on the keyboard. His wine glass is placed to his right, almost at the edge of the table, which means my best move is to knock it away from him and his laptop. I swallow hard, take another deep breath, and head to the door that lead to the next carriage. As I am about to open it, I turn to my right and push his glass off the table. "Oh my goodness, I am so incredibly sorry, sir," I say nervously, trying to keep my voice slightly higher pitched than my natural one, and I take some tissues out of the side pocket of my backpack. He swears and closes his laptop. "How the hell can you be so clumsy?" He's angry. I can hear it in his voice. It must have been a nice glass of wine. But then he looks at me, the low cleavage of my blouse, the long and wavy brown hair barely covering anything, and he smiles. The frustration from his face is gone. "Sir, please, I will buy you a new drink, I promise," I mumble, still pretending to be stressed over this situation. "Ah, darling, please don't worry. It's just a liquid." When I'm done wiping off the seat opposite him, I throw the tissues in the bin and head for the bar, leaving my backpack innocently on the seat by the window. As I walk away, I make sure to swing my hips with the movement to attract more of his attention. With the wine replacement in my hand, I walk back to the table and smile innocently at my target. He smiles back at me, probably thinking he got lucky I came across him. I know what he does when no one is looking, to what atrocities he lowers himself when he is not pretending to be a highly respected businessman. And I also know that my silly outfit and clumsiness made him incredibly happy. Wipe this smile off your face, you monster. You have no idea what's coming. I sit on the bench I just wiped off and push my backpack under the table, right by my legs. My name is Cassie, I say, and gently bat my eyelashes at him. I hope I didn't spill any wine on your gorgeous suit or very expensive-looking laptop. I chuckle nervously, waiting for his reaction. Well, Cassie, I think you just got lucky. Nothing seems to be damaged. I look at the table behind the laptop. Actually, there may be a little left here. Please, let me... I lean to my backpack under the pretense to get the tissues, and with them, I take out the syringe and place it on my lap. After wiping the invisible stain off the table, I smile at my target again. Thank you for being so understanding. Of course. Before he says anything else, I stab his thigh with my unassuming weapon, and his eyes open wide. What did you just do? Shh, I say in my normal voice, and watch him slowly drift away. Have a nap, sir. The road to nowhere. I yawned and rubbed the sleep away from my eyes, looking around. The flickering lights of the train windows I had gotten so used to were gone, and all I could see were the dim white lights that lined the aisle of the train car. I glanced around at all the empty seats, confused. Why was I here? Why was the train empty? And why wasn't it moving? Confusion overtook me, followed by panic. I shot to my feet and strode to the end of the train car, trying the door at the very end, but it wouldn't budge. I quickened my steps to the other side, my shoes clanking on the metal floor, and tried the sliding door. This one opened like a dream. Excitedly, I stepped out of the train car onto the solid ground I knew would be there, and promptly fell. There was no ground. There was no sky. There was just nothingness. My heart dropped into my stomach as I lurched downward, and the only thing that saved me from plummeting into that nothingness was the open backpack on my back, caught on the armrest of one of the chairs still inside. My arms, having felt like they were wrenched from my shoulders, hung there loosely as the straps of my backpack held on to me for dear life. My breath caught in my throat, and my mind raced as I stared out at the blackness before me. How do I get up? I tried to turn to grab the floor of the train car, but a loud tearing of fabric caused me to pause, and my heart thundered in my ears. I waited, my arms refusing to move out of fear, but in one fell swoop, I launched my hands up behind me and hoisted myself back onto the floor of the train car, just as my backpack completely tore open. Panting heavily, back in the safety of the train car, I ripped my backpack off my shoulders and inspected the damage. The top was completely torn, but I didn't care. That stupid backpack saved my life. I threw it back on and stood up, staring out at the blackness before me, holding on to the armrest of a chair just for insurance. There was literally nothing. No one. The silence was so suffocating, I almost wished to hear my heart pounding in my ears again. "Hello?" I called as loud as I could into the void. But there wasn't even an echo, just silence. Suddenly, as if compelled by some outside force, the train car lurched forward. I nearly tumbled into the void again, the only thing that saved me being that armrest I was holding. "What was that? Who's doing that?" I called, but once again, no answer. The train car chugged along slowly, almost at a snail's pace, but I figured that was better than nothing. I closed the sliding door, sick of my inability to stay firmly in the train, and walked carefully to a seat, plopping down into it. What was I doing before I got on the train? I didn't remember. Who was I? I didn't remember. It felt like I'd been created from air and dropped onto this God-forsaken train, surrounded by this God-forsaken nothing. I took the poor, shredded backpack off my shoulders again and searched through it this time, but all I found were some loose-leaf blank sheets of notebook paper. A student, maybe? If I was stupidly disorganized. I desperately tried to search my brain for any clues related to school. Maybe the name of a school I went to, the names of past teachers, the faces of fellow students and friends. I came up with nothing. No matter how much I tried to scour my memories, one unchangeable fact remained. I was stuck on a train car in the middle of the void, heading to nowhere. All I could do was wait. So that's what I did. I waited, and I waited, and waited. I kept myself occupied with my thoughts as I stared out the window, gazing into the darkness. I don't know how much time passed. I had nothing to gauge my bearings on. No watch, no ticking clock, nothing. The dim lights from the train ceiling flickered for a moment, and then went out with a quiet click. And at the same time, the train came to an abrupt halt. I looked away from the window and shot to my feet, wrenched away from my thoughts, and pressed myself against the train wall. I could barely see anything. The dim lights were the only light source in this never-ending blackness. "Hello?" I called out, but my voice broke in my nervousness. There was a small beep, like something about to be announced over an intercom. And all of a sudden, a digital message began scrolling across the top of the train wall in bright red, digital letters. Suddenly, as if compelled by some outside force, the train car lurched forward. The train started moving again, abruptly, the force almost yanking me off my feet, and I steadied myself before looking back at the digital red letters. Who's doing this? Who is it? My frustration and stress exploded into my voice, and I stomped angrily away from the wall to stand in the center of the slow-moving train car, bathed by the weak red light of the letters. The digital message continued scrolling, and the letters would reveal a message that would make me rush towards the seats. The train started moving again abruptly, the force almost yanking me off my feet. I didn't catch the rest, desperate to get to a seat. The train did, in fact, start moving forward again. And it was only by the grace of God that I ended up grabbing the armrest of a seat to avoid flying to the floor. Angrily, I stormed to the end of the train and yanked open the sliding door, screaming into the void. Are you messing with me? What are you trying to do? Why am I here? I glanced back at the red letters on a whim and saw the following message. The silence was so suffocating, I almost wished to hear my heart pounding in my ears again. Nothing. Absolute silence. And the last thing I saw before tumbling out of the train and into the void were the small red letters forming the words, "There was no ground. There was no sky. Good luck." The Rougarou. Raylan Stone was installing a strut on a Toyota when I burst into the Texaco station. I ducked under the lift, slipped in a patch of oil, and cracked my head on the garage floor. Mais la, Delilah Jane. Are you pining for a concussion? The handsome Cajun scooped me up and set me on a stack of tires. He wiped grease off his hands and gently palpated the back of my head. You're not bleeding, Cher, but there's a lump. You might have cracked your skull. Holding my throbbing head, I mumbled, I'm just dizzy. Why'd you bust in here like a rabid wolf was after you? Lucinda's missing. Lucinda Defoe? Isn't she your cousin? Yeah? Her foster mom said she didn't come home from the roller rink last night. That teenager's wild as a colt. This ain't the first time she's run off. That's why I've got to have my truck. A muscle vibrated in his lean jaw. It's not ready. Baton Rouge ain't bringing the new radiator until tomorrow. Then let me borrow something. Antoinette thinks that Mississippi River pirates got her. He threw back his head and laughed. Antoinette watches too much television. She swore that a UFO beamed Lucinda to Mars last year. And a few months ago, she told the sheriff that the Rougarou ate the girl. I shuddered, imagining the man-wolf. 8 feet tall, he had eyes like fire coals and teeth like a bear's. He hunted dogs and kids who wandered into the bayou. My headstrong cousin liked to sneak out there. Gambling with her life turned her on. Giving me the side eye, Raylan said in Cajun French, Tonnerre mes chiens. Tell me you don't believe in the Rougarou. No, of course not. He's a legend. Not real at all. Invented to scare bratty children. His lips quirked. Irritated that I hadn't fooled him, I squared my shoulders. I'm guessing that she's at the fish camp with Marcus. That's where she was last time. I need to bring her back. You're not going anywhere with a busted noggin. I fingered my skull and winced. It's sore, not busted. Have you met Marcus? Haven't had the pleasure. You're lucky. He's mean as a snapping turtle. Everybody swears he eats water moccasins and scorpions for breakfast. Imagine what he could do to a 16-year-old. Are you gonna lend me a vehicle or not? Sorry, I don't have a loaner. Muttering, I shoved myself off the tires and bumped into his hard chest. Steadying me, he smoothed a curl off my forehead. I leaned into his palm for an instant and then stepped back. My friends said he was crazy about me, but he'd never even stolen a kiss. Raylan Stone was a Southern gent, a throwback to the days when a man left a calling card and asked your daddy if he could court you. I didn't have a daddy. Neither did Lucinda. I licked my lips and tried again. My cousins had nothing but bad breaks since her parents died. If she's with Marcus, she's with a critter as dangerous as the Rougarou. He sanded the beard stubble on his jaw with the heel of his hand. Look, I'd drive you if I could, but the mayor's coming to pick up the Toyota. I've got to finish the struts and rotate the tires by 5 o'clock. Tell her it's an emergency. Narrowing his dark eyes, he stepped forward and caught my chin. He stood, rock still, his warm breath wafting over my face. I trembled, thinking he was going to kiss me. I wanted him to. Instead, he whispered, I was a medic in the army, not a neurologist. But I'd say you dodged that concussion. Your pupils are equal and react to the light. That's a hard head you've got, taking a hit like that on concrete. Yeah, my head's not made out of paper mache. I'm fine. Prove it. Let me see you walk the scene in the floor. Hoping he would relent about driving me, I traversed the crack like a tightrope walker, turned, and came back. My head hurt, but I didn't wobble. Satisfied, his brows drawn in a scowl, he picked up a box wrench and twirled it through his fingers. All right, Cher. You win. I'll let you take old Jeb, go to the fish camp, and then come straight back. Deal, old Jeb? Oh la la. Raylan's rebuilt 1940 International Harvester was a thing of power and beauty. He didn't let anybody drive that truck. Maybe he was crazy about me. I resisted a sudden urge to kiss him. Go wait in the portico, Delilah Jane. I'll bring him around. Hurry before I change my damn mind. Its wiper blades flip-flopping over the divided windshield. The old truck rumbled into the portico a few minutes later. Raylan hopped out and cocked his fists on his narrow hips. You ever drove a double-wheel rear end? No, but it can't be all that different from my Ram truck. Different enough. You lock up the brakes, you'll skip the tires, and the rear end'll get away from you. Don't drive old Jeb over 40. Heavy rain's fixing to start. I'll drive him 10 under at all times. I swear. That'll be a first. You doing the speed limit. I put my foot on the wet running board and slipped. I fell backwards. As Raylan cupped my hiney to catch me, I heard him draw a sharp breath. Careful, darlin'. It's slippery when wet. Dieu. He slid his hands to my waist and boosted me onto the seat. I stole a look in the rearview mirror. Red cheeks, lawsy, an impish twinkle in his eyes. He said, I dropped a green diamond 214 cubic inch engine into old Jeb last month. Feel the vibration? That calfskin seat's kind of tickly, ain't it? Yes, the engine was vibrating a place I'd never admit to in 1,000 years. Or maybe it was a visceral memory of Raylan's hands on my tail. Oh la la, with hot pepper on top. The engine ain't broke in yet, so keep an eye on the tachometer as you run through the gears. Don't rev him up, you hear? I'll treat him like a baby possum. He snorted and shook his head. You don't have to go that far. Hey, let me adjust the rearview mirror for you. The dang thing likes to stick. As he leaned across me, his fingertips skimmed my thigh. He turned his head and gazed at me for several breathless seconds. I saw a muscle throb in his cheek and heat flash in his eyes. He positioned the mirror and stood back. Flushed from head to toe, I stared at the gauges as though I'd never seen anything so fascinating. Okay, see if Lucinda's out there, and then head straight back here. If she ain't at the fish camp, the sheriff can send the Cajun Navy after Antoinette's river pirates. I chuckled as he shut the door. Cranking the window down, I was about to wisecrack that he looked like a daddy sending his truck off to kindergarten. But he gazed at me with such solemnity that the words died in my throat. Watch your back, darlin'. I don't believe in your rougarou. But if something were to happen to you, nothing's gonna happen, and he's not my rougarou. I forced a laugh. That smelly old monster would make an awful pet. Looking even more solemn, he placed his warm hand on the back of my neck. You sure you know how to drive a big truck? Does a duck wear waterproof underwear? Watch me. His fingers tightened. I'd like to watch you, and not in duck drawers. Damn, woman. You wear that truck like Victoria's Secret. Who? I flushed again, thrilled. Maybe Raylan Stone wasn't the gentleman I'd taken him for. Buckle up. There ain't a shoulder harness, but the lap belt will keep you from going anywhere. Not that you're gonna hit nothing, right? I touched 2 fingers to my eyebrow. Right. Don't worry about me. Frowning, he churned his hair with both hands. Quit worrying, Raylan. I'm calm as a clam. Calm as a clam fixing to be deep fried. I'll be back in 2 hours. I pushed in the clutch, eased into first gear, and drove into the rain. It wouldn't be long until dark. I was on the highway near the swamp when a lightning bolt snapped out of the clouds. It unleashed a torrent of rain. Within minutes, the deep ditches on either side of the highway overflowed. Rooster tails sprayed out of old Jeb's fenders and hit the windshield. The window fogged up. Blinded, I stopped to clear the glass with my sleeve. I glimpsed movement out of the corner of my eye. A huge black thing lurched out of the swamp and fixed a pair of glowing red eyes on me. The rougarou. I jammed the gas pedal to the floorboard, not looking back, not looking aside, looking only through the foggy windshield and screaming, screaming, screaming. As I shifted into second, the rear end broke loose. I jerked the wheel in the direction of the skid and felt the truck catch up. But then I skidded the opposite way and overcorrected. Storm water snatched old Jeb toward the ditches as we reeled back and forth. Waves exploded over the hood. Steam boiled out of the engine, black smoke pouring out of its stacks. A dump truck appeared in the mirror. Roaring like a bear, it smashed into us. Old Jeb spun a 360 and sailed into the ditch. Sudden deceleration. My hips snapped against the lap belt. My knees slammed into the dashboard. My forehead bounced off the steering wheel. Dark water rose over the hood and sprayed in around the windows and door seals. It boiled out of the dash, the air vents, the gas pedal, the floorboards. The ammeter glowed bright red, and then the turbid water snuffed it out. The cab submerged. Locked in a cold, black tomb, I fought to unbuckle the seatbelt. Water rose to my chin. Choking, I struggled for air. White-hot knives stabbed my chest. I heard a dog barking, and then a gruff voice. "Get to the air pocket, or you'll become a ghost like me." The seatbelt buckle popped open. I pushed off the steering wheel and hit my head on the roof. Found the air pocket. Sucked sharp, terrified gulps of oxygen. Old Jeb groaned and nosed deeper into the ditch. I fumbled for the door handle. The door wouldn't open. It couldn't. The water pressure outside was too great. The door wouldn't open until the pressure equalized. That would be when the cab was full of water. By then, I would have drowned. Raylan Stone would tow the truck out and stare at me in disapproval. I'd promised not to hurt old Jeb. Dragging in a lungful of air, I ducked underwater and tried to grab the window crank. The freezing water struck my head like a hammer and knocked the air out of my lungs. I caromed to the ceiling and hit my head. I can't do it. It's too deep. It's too cold. I can't get out. I'm gonna die. Something appeared in the darkness. brown fur, claws, teeth. I felt the rougarou touching me, breathing on me. I screamed in mindless terror, rolled down the window. Golden eyes, a white bib, and speckled paws appeared. It was the little brown dog that I'd lost to the rougarou when I was 5. Barks pushed my head underwater and guided my frozen hand to the crank. Together, we rolled the window down. "Get out, Delilah Jane. Go." My face hit the ditch bank. It was too close, choking off escape. I was underwater. My lungs burned. I had to take a breath. If I did, I would drown. If I didn't, I would suffocate. I would die no matter what I did. "I'm gonna bite you." Sudden, sharp pain in my butt. I spasmed, twisted, heard my scream carry away my last breath. My head broke out of the water. I clawed the bank, shoved my feet against the truck, and crawled onto the flooded road. Coughed, sucked cold wind. Where was my dog? The rain stopped, as though someone had flipped a switch. Low in the northeast, the wolf moon was waxing full. Tonight, the rougarou would reach his zenith of power, its diesel engine roaring. The dump truck crested the hill. Tires squalled, and a shadow rushed at me. I saw the head of a wolf mounted on the massive, black-furred body of a man. I turned to run. The rougarou stabbed my back with his claws and sank his canines into my neck. Sterile white room. White blanket trapping my legs. Panicked, I started kicking. "Calm down, Delilah Jane. Look at me," gripping my shoulder. Raylan Stone stroked my cheek. His shirt bore a picture of a diesel truck and a caption, "Black smoke, don't mean it's broke." I visualized the dump truck in my mirror, smoke billowing from the stacks. "Don't let it get me." "Shh, baby. You're in the emergency room. Nothing's gonna get you, darling." But a frightening kaleidoscope whirled in my mind. Lucinda was inside the submerged truck. As I struggled to free her, the rougarou surfaced from the dark water and tore out her throat. I screamed and screamed. I heard Raylan's low-voiced command. "Open your eyes, Cher. It's just a dream. That's all it is. You got a concussion when you smacked your head in the garage. The rougarou's killing my cousin." "No." The sheriff picked her up at the fish camp. "You had a bad dream, baby. Just a bad dream. It's over." I covered my face and wept. The mechanic gathered me into his arms and began humming a Cajun melody, his vibrato flowing in rich, warm waves out of his chest into mine. As I settled into him, he whispered, "I won't let anything happen to you. I swear. You're safe, love. Safe." He cradled me in his left arm and gently pushed the hair out of my eyes. Cut like banjo strings, his powerful arms were colored in ink. Tattooed on his right wrist was a knife, twin arrows. And de oppresso liber. Is that Latin? Shh, don't talk. But I needed to make sure I was alive. That what I was seeing was real. That I wasn't dreaming anymore. I touched his wrist. Warm and strong. Pulsing. Real. I traced my finger over the tattoo and felt him tremble. What's the tattoo for, Raylan? It's the Special Forces crest. From oppression, we will liberate them. Like he'd liberated me from the nightmare. So I didn't wreck old Jeb? His eyebrows shot up like question marks. I don't let anybody drive my truck. Oh, wait. You drove him in your dream. Heaving a shaky sigh, I laced my fingers through his. It was so real. So awful. Will you take me home? Later, darling. We're gonna stay and keep you awake. Concussion protocol. His eyes twinkling, his lips quirked in the mischievous grin I was beginning to love. The next time you come sliding into my garage, I'll outfit you with a crash helmet. Smiling, I snuggled into his arms. Raylan Stone was exactly the gentleman I'd dreamed he was. Maybe tomorrow, I'd steal a kiss. Monochromatic. This story includes depictions of mental health and death. There is nothing graphic, but these topics are touched on. I had never been quite fond of Eve. As her psychiatric nurse, the buoy who kept her from drowning in an ocean of madness, I should have made an effort to respect my patient. I should have, and yet I couldn't. It was unbearable to deal with a soul so far gone, someone so dreadfully insane. Nonetheless, Evelyn Barrett was still mine to care for, my own burden. It was odd to dwell on the fact that someone so young, barely even 18 to be exact, could mentally fall down such a slippery slope. Eve was admitted to the sanitarium around 2 months ago, following her breakdown at school. According to her classmates, Eve had never been social. She tended to keep to herself when given the choice. And while this was not abnormal behavior for a teenage girl, it had always been different with Eve. Well, it had grown to become different. Students began reporting incidents involving Eve. They would hear her muttering to herself in class, her words unintelligible, but her whispers crazed. They would hear her sobbing in bathroom stalls. Her teachers noticed her grades slipping. Eve would write ominous messages on her papers, and she would draw horrific drawings in her notebook. Drawings of characters plucked straight from horror movies, monsters. Though her behavior was abnormal, Eve caused no problems. She remained silent, which was nothing out of the ordinary. She basked in the endless insanity of her paranoid, twisted mind. But at that time, no one was aware of how truly twisted it was. After months of containment, Eve suddenly exploded. She jumped up in the middle of class and shrieked, screaming bloody murder Accounts of the story from her classmates explained that Eve screamed, "Leave me alone," dozens of times. According to the witnesses, Eve was not talking to a specific person, not one that anyone could see anyway. Her teachers restrained her and subdued her screams. Her behavior was, according to her classmates, purely and utterly horrifying, insane. And so, I was stuck with Evelyn Barrett. I tried to build connections with my patients, and usually, I was successful. Over my years as a nurse, I liked to think that my psychological support helped my patients heal. It did. There was no doubt about it. I did my job well until Eve came along. For some odd reason, I could not break through with Eve, break into her subconscious and heal her fragile mind. Whenever I tried to talk to her, she would do one of two things. Either she would completely block me out, or she would scream nonsense at me. In any case, neither method was beneficial in the slightest. The past 2 months had consisted of pointless therapy sessions and no progress whatsoever. I couldn't help but feel sorry for the poor girl. As I walked into my tidy office, I pushed out a sigh and slumped into my armchair. Eve was scheduled to meet with me at any second, and to be quite honest, I was dreading our session. Up until now, my day had been calm. My serenity was about to be interrupted simply by being in the presence of the crazed child. 3 knocks on the door was all it took. My spine straightened, and I felt the muscles in my neck tighten. My automatic physical response whenever Eve was near. The creaking of the door disturbed my therapeutic silence, and as I watched a caretaker escort Eve through the doorway, a queasy feeling began to form in my gut. Eve seemed on edge today, more on edge than normal. Her long cascade of honey blonde hair was ruffled, as though she couldn't be bothered to run a comb through it. Her face was a sickly shade of white. The shadows casted upon her face complemented the lack of life within her frozen, gray eyes. Eyes that hardly looked like eyes at all. She looked dreadful. The caretaker made sure that Eve settled comfortably on the couch before taking her leave. Nevertheless, Eve looked nothing but uncomfortable. She brought her knees to her chest and hugged them tightly, her body resembling something of a ball. Her hands shook while her feet tapped on the cushion over and over again. It was easy to assume that nerves had Eve in a chokehold. "How are you doing today, Eve?" I asked the girl, my voice visibly annoyed. I didn't care enough to put on a facade for her. Eve wasn't fond of me, as far as I could tell. It was obvious by the way her eyes ever so slightly cut into my face, as though they were 2 honed knives. Regardless, the feeling was mutual, and so treating one another this way had become routine. Usually when I asked her a question, Eve ignored it completely. I assumed she would simply ignore me by the way her gaze dug into my skin, and so I wasted no time before pulling out my notebook. Lazily, I jotted down a note, Silence, I wrote. Nothing out of the ordinary, until I heard a raspy breath emerge from her mouth. "He's going to kill me soon," Eve muttered, her voice barely a whisper. I could hardly comprehend her words. Her empty eyes widened as her fingernails dug into her pants. The girl rocked back and forth in a crazed manner, almost as though she truly feared for her life. I, for one, believed that Eve was bananas, but as her nurse, I could not disregard such an alarming phrase. "Who? Who's going to kill you?" I asked, as calmly as possible. Though I knew that Eve was completely mad, I knew that she was. Her words still managed to send a chill through my bones. Eve disregarded my words for a moment, her mind unable to flee from whatever eternal nightmare it was trapped in. Her gaze remained on the ground and focused on anything but me. Seconds ticked by. Minutes. Finally, Eve's eyes snapped to mine, somehow more frantic than before. "He's taking over my life, the world around me, everything," she snapped loudly, her sharp words making me flinch. Her body recoiled after her outburst, and she scrunched back into her ball with a shaken expression on her face. "He's going to kill me soon," she repeated. "I just know it." With a sigh, I set my notebook aside and leaned forward. This wasn't the first time that Eve had acted up during a session, but this was the first time that she seemed so sure. So sure about the fact that something was bothering her. I said, "You are safe here, Eve. Nothing is going to kill you. This is all in your mind, okay? You're okay." "No, please, Debbie. I am not insane. This is real," Eve persisted. Hearing her say my name was odd. She had never addressed me before, and until now, I did not know that she even knew my name. He's out to get me. The Shadow Man. He's the Shadow Man?" I repeated incredulously. Despite Eve's urgency, I did not believe her words. Her crazed, perplexing words. She had never once opened up to me like this, and so I had no reason to believe that she was telling the truth now. Instead of dismissing her comment, I wanted to dig further. It was my job, after all. "Who is he?" Eve shuddered, as though a gust of icy wind had blown through the room. "I don't know." She paused abruptly and locked eyes with me. "But he takes things from me. He steals them." Despite my confusion, I played into her claim. "What does he take from you?" Eve blinked multiple times. "Color. Color? The color that I see. The color that she sees." "What does that mean, Eve?" I asked, and anxiety grasped my brain. Her answer, while strange, was also oddly specific. And something about that was off-putting. Color blindness. Was that what Eve was hinting at? Were colors fading from her vision? I took my assumption and rolled with it. "Does your family have a history of color blindness?" That sounded about right. Perhaps Eve was losing her sense of color, and she was freaking out about it. That wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary, but it was obviously nothing to go crazy about. No, it's not color blindness. He takes the color from me. She snapped again, her expression flushing with maroon fury. You're wrong. I am not crazy. You think I am, but I'm not. I'm not. Suddenly, Eve was on her feet, marching across the room to my desk. I sat up out of habit and hesitated. Eve seemed angry. Was she going to attack me? Grab for a weapon? I decided to take no chances, and I, too, rose to my feet. I turned to face Eve, only to find that she was inspecting various objects on my desk. Colored pens, Post-its, my computer. It's all black and white. Everything. She picked up a lime green Post-it and shook it in her hand. I can't tell what color this is. He stole it from me. It's gone. It's all gone. He's gonna kill me once everything is gone. Eve, calm down. No, I can't. Eve paused abruptly when her eyes fell upon a particular object on my desk. Her mouth gaped open as she snatched the object, inspecting it in awe. I almost reached for her arm and demanded for her to put the object down, but I restrained myself. Eve held the card that my daughter had made for me years ago. On the front of the card was a drawing of a rainbow, colored messily with crayon. My daughter had handcrafted the card when I fell terribly ill, and I believe that the card itself had cured me. I had kept it lying on my desk all these years, and the messy rainbow had been my constant reminder that color can supply us with life and wellness. And now, as Eve's shaky hands grasped the card, I fought the urge to snatch it from her. This card was precious to me. I couldn't risk her ruining it. It's colorful. She gasped in awe, her eyes absorbing the card as though its sparkles were emitting from it. I can see the rainbow. He hasn't stolen it from me. Suddenly, Eve's guard was up once again, and she clenched the card against her chest. I winced as the paper grew crinkled in her strong grasp. I need to keep this card with me. I can't let the Shadow Man steal it. It's all I have left. Protectively, I shook my head. My deranged patient could not be trusted with my precious card, my personal gift from my daughter. No, I don't think that's... Debbie, please, Eve urged. For one moment, the desperation in her voice made her sound sane. This is life or death. I am not insane. He is going to kill me. I can't let him steal the color from this. It's all I have. Please. Hesitance gripped me by the throat, and I opened my mouth to speak. Nothing came out. Eve stared me down, and her empty eyes were suddenly not empty anymore. They weren't lifeless. Instead, they seemed brighter, filled with life, with hope. I had never seen this side of Evelyn Barrett before. I stuttered. Nothing is going to happen to you, Eve. You don't need this card. But as I said these words, even I heard the doubt within my voice. I felt that I would regret keeping the card. Perhaps if I gave Eve the card to borrow, she would feel more at ease. Perhaps this card was the key to break through into Eve's mind. Perhaps she wasn't so far gone. Reluctantly, I backed away from the girl. Just keep it for now. That's fine, I sighed. Eve's eyes sparkled, and a hint of a smile pricked at her lips. She looked normal, as though she didn't live in a sanitarium. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, she repeated hastily. Just return it to me when you no longer need it. Of course. Eve's mannerism was completely different than it had been when she first arrived. As she continued inspecting the card in awe, I couldn't help but smile. Perhaps I could help her. Perhaps the Eve that I was not quite fond of was fading, and a new girl was coming to light. Either way, I felt the start of something new. Hope. The next day, I was scheduled to check up on Eve. The feeling of apprehension that usually sat in the pit of my stomach was gone. Ever since our session yesterday, I had faith that my patient was healing, truly healing. I walked with optimism, hopeful that my relationship with Eve was growing stronger. One of the best feelings as a therapist was knowing that you were of aid to your patient, that you were able to dig them out of a great hole. It felt rewarding, fulfilling. I approached Eve's door and knocked gently so as not to startle her. Though she was in the process of healing, she was still fragile. I waited for a few seconds before knocking again. Eve did not respond, and I heard no noise from inside the room. The queasy feeling in my stomach returned. I knocked louder. No response. To accompany my uneasiness, an alarm resonated through my skull. Something was wrong. Skeptically, I pushed open the door and took a quick glance around the room. It didn't take long for me to spot her. Eve. She was sprawled out on the ground, unconscious. Without hesitation, I crouched on the floor next to her, shaking her shoulder. Eve? Eve? I blurted. There was no response. She didn't move. No, Eve. Wake up. My chest felt light as I reached for Eve's delicate wrist. There was no pulse. In fact, her skin was a block of ice. Oh my God, Eve. Numbly, my eyes trailed over towards her hand. Her fingers limply held a little slip of paper with a rainbow on it. The card that my daughter made. The next few moments were a blur. My body began moving on its own, while my mind remained stuck on the image of Eve's body on the floor. Her still, pale body. As I unconsciously grabbed the card out of Eve's limp hand and shoved it in my pocket, I heard muffled voices entering the bedroom, scrambling around me, asking me what had happened. I didn't process the question, couldn't process it. All of my senses were honed in on Eve, on the fact that she was dead. Nurses surrounded Eve and I, and before I knew it, I was laying on the ground too, losing consciousness. I felt as though I was floating in outer space, and it became a struggle to breathe. My vision was fading into a deep darkness, and everyone near me was fading. The nurses, Eve, everything was fading. I was grasping onto nothing. But no, something was still there, hidden in the corner of my periphery. Though it blended within the darkness overtaking my mind, it wasn't completely hidden. I saw it. Him, though hardly visible, I was still able to make out the silhouette of a large man standing in the corner of the room. He hardly looked like a man at all, really. As far as I could tell, he had no hair, no face. He looked like an apparition by the way he blended into the wall behind him. He was the absence of everything, a void where light should have been. It was impossible to make out the distinct features of the man, but even with a blurry glimpse, I knew that the man was something of a sinister entity, evil. As I blacked out, two words repeatedly rang in my head. They reverberated deeply, their consonants sounding of menacing death knells. It was all I heard as I lost consciousness. Shadow man, shadow man, shadow man. I woke up with a start on the couch in my office. My thoughts immediately trailed to what I last could remember. They trailed to Eve. She had died. Was that all a dream? What if it wasn't? What was the cause of her death? She was healthy, physically at least. Nothing made sense. The shadowed silhouette grazed my thoughts, and a chill fell over my body. I must have been imagining the man. I had not been in the right state of mind, nearly on the brink of passing out. It was an illusion. It had to be. So why was it that Eve had also been hallucinating a shadow man? A lump in my pocket alerted my senses, and I reached for whatever was inside. My fingers lifted out a piece of crinkled paper, scrunched up in a ball. The card. It was ruined, shoved in my pocket like a piece of trash. As my eyes welled up with tears, I unfolded the paper and examined the rainbow on the front. I blinked multiple times and wiped away the tears from my eyes. Something wasn't right. My vision was playing games with me. As I stared at the card, at the sloppy rainbow on the front, my heart dropped as I realized something. Eve wasn't crazy. The rainbow on the front of the card was no longer drawn in colorful crayon. It was purely black and white, so today's story has come to an end. Or perhaps it never really ended. There are mysteries still there, questions still unanswered, and sometimes things that seem to only exist in stories can creep into reality in unexpected ways. Are you sure that when you turn off the sound, everything around you will still be normal as before? Or is there something watching you? Either way, always remember that these are just stories, or at least we want to believe that they are. If you like moments of suspense, tension, and breathlessness, don't forget to follow me so you don't miss the next stories. And next time, when you come back, make sure you are ready, because what awaits you may be even scarier than you thought. See you again if you still have the courage to continue listening.